guys, it's Alex. If you have already fallen off the wagon for your New Year's resolutions or goals, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to set more effective goals and also drop some true knowledge on the change model. Get ready to get learned. January is such a hard time for goals. A lot of them get kicked to the curb. About right now in the month, it's really easy to give up on new things, especially if you don't have super well set goals. All right, so let's just jump right in. The change model is kind of like a blueprint for how you get to having a problem to solving it. So there are 5 main steps to the change model. The first is pre-contemplation, contemplation, planning, action, maintenance. So those 5 steps are essentially how you get from having a problem to solving it. The first stage is pre-contemplation, and that is a stage where you're not sure that you have a problem yet or you haven't identified it in yourself. A classic example of pre-contemplation is if you have a drinking problem but you don't see it as detrimental yet. The second step is contemplation, and that is where you've identified that you have a problem or you see it as a problem, but you're not quite sure how to go about fixing it. The third stage is planning. That is where you have identified your problem and now you are sitting down and writing out the steps that you are going to take to get to where you want to go. The fourth step, action, that is where you put that plan into place. This is a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of failure here. This is probably where a lot of you are right now in January because you've set those goals and you've made your plan, and now implementing that plan and putting that into action, it might be where you're falling off the wagon. The fifth and final stage is maintenance, and that is where the goal that you made or the plan that you have is now part of your routine. It's a habit. It's something that you do all the time. So understanding the change model is a really good way to start making goals. So something that you should know before you set a goal is that you have to know what your problem is, and there are 3 main types of problems. The 3 main types of problems are gaps, holes, and obstacles. So a gap would be like a gap in knowledge. So if you wanted to lift 1,000 pounds for your powerlifting set, but you didn't know how to deadlift, that would be a gap in knowledge. A hole would be unforeseen circumstances or going into a new situation that you're not super familiar with. And then an obstacle is a barrier that you have to overcome. So once you've identified what kind of problem you have, you can start to get into that planning phase. So the planning phase is where you're going to set a goal, and this is where setting effective goals comes in handy. So a lot of people will set goals that they don't have control over, or they'll set goals that aren't specific enough that they are easy to attain. An example of a goal that's out of my control that I have for this year is, I know I have like a super small YouTube channel, so my goal is to get 100 views on every video, which is out of my control, but there are things that I can do to make it more likely that that will happen, and that is where my plan is implemented. There is a really good method for setting goals. It is called the SMART method. SMART is an acronym. S is specific, M measurable, A attainable, R relevant, and T is time specific. So a specific goal is, instead of being vague like I want to be more fit, a specific goal would be like I want to run a mile. A measurable goal would be, instead of I want to run more, it would be I want to run a mile. As far as attainable goals go, you have to kind of find a sweet spot. You don't want your goal to be too easy, but you don't want it to be too hard and too much of a jump. You want to grow and you want to stretch, but you don't want to have it be too hard where you have to give up on it, but you don't want it to be too small where you're settling or limiting the size of your dreams. So an attainable goal for someone who's never ran a mile would be, I would like to run 3 times a week, instead of I want to run a marathon this year. A relevant goal would be something that sort of aligns with the things that you want to do with your life, or like the other goals that you have. You don't want it to be totally off the wall to where it's not enhancing other parts of your life. If there's something new out there that you want to pursue, go for it, but make sure that the goal is relevant to where you want to get to. And finally, time specific. This just means you have a deadline on it, or you have kind of an end goal of when you want to have this achieved. The reason the SMART method is so effective is instead of being so vague, you're making very specific goals, you have a way to measure it, it's relevant, and you have a deadline by when you need to get it done. You should have a game plan. One of my big tips for setting effective goals is to know what inhibits you from reaching that goal and know what promotes you reaching that goal. So one of my goals for 2018 is waking up at 6 in the morning, and I have found that something that inhibits me from waking up at 6 in the morning is not having something to do in the morning. So if I don't have anything to do when I wake up, I probably am not going to want to be up. Something that promotes me waking up at 6 a.m. is going to bed on time, having a plan in the morning, and setting my clothes out the night before. So once you've set your SMART goal, you have completed the planning phase and you are ready to put that into action. Something that people don't tell you is that the action phase can happen over and over and over again. Reaching your goal does not mean going from the planning phase to the action phase and straight to maintenance. There is a lot of turnover there. There's a lot of having to go from the action phase back to the planning phase. And then once you finally get that into a routine, that can take a really long time. So the action phase is not an easy step to be in. It's probably one of the hardest. In January, a lot of you are in the action phase, and this is where people kind of start to give up on their dreams because they don't realize that you can be in the action phase for a really long time and you can bounce back and forth between planning and action because the plan that you make might not be the right plan for you to get it done. So I have found at the beginning of January, my goal was just to willpower get up at 6 a.m. I failed at that, and so I started making lists of things I needed to do in the morning. I started setting my clothes out. I went to the gym in the morning. Those are the things that get me out of bed and keep me attaining my goal. So I've had to go back, and I'm still not perfect at it. I have to go back, recalculating. So another tip for setting effective goals is to state your goal positively instead of negatively. So this would be like, how can I avoid failing this class? It would be more like, what steps can I take to get the grade that I want? So this kind of turns it from how can I avoid something happening to me and turning it into what steps can I take? What can I do? Because I'm a goal getter. So stating your goals positively also kind of adds some energy to it. It makes you in control of it, and you can kind of take the reins of it and be like, shh. So I know January is such a hard time for goals because you've set things and now you're kind of like, do I really want it? So I know those goals are kind of falling by the wayside, but hopefully some of these tips will help you to kind of pick those up and figure out where you're going wrong with them, and then allow you to kind of reformulate those plans and put them into action. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I know this is a little bit of a different tone than the other videos that I've had. I wanted to bring this to you because I've really loved the change model. I've used it for a lot of things. It's really helpful for me to sit down and evaluate things through this lens instead of being like, what do I want and how am I going to get there? This gives me more of a method to achieve the things that I want to do and become the person that I want to be. So I hope that this helps you. I really hope that you use it or you think about using it. Before I go, I just want to give you a quick reason on why I am qualified to tell you these things. Through the Certified Peer Educator program, I believe it's through Bacchus Initiative, I was trained for about 6 months at Kansas State University to be a certified peer educator, which allows me to work as an in-between between an actual friend and a counselor, so I can give resources, presentations, plan events, etc. Most of my information is from this book, which is a Certified Peer Educator's Guide to the Galaxy. If you would like to purchase it, there will be a link in the description. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. Even if you're not taking a Certified Peer Educator class, this book has a lot of things for working with teams, how to set goals, the change model, how to be successful in school, etc. It's a good read. It really does spur some growth. So if you're really into self-help books and nonfiction, this book is for you. Let me know in the comments if you have goals for 2018 or just in general what your goals are. I would love to hear them, and I hope you have a great week. I will see you next week with some other random content. Bye!